In this video, I'm testing Synthflow and Lindy in 7 areas from ease of use and telephony options to latency, pricing, and hidden costs to see which is the better platform for building voice AI agents. I'll also link to a side-by-side comparison below with all the results, and you can plug in your requirements to see which tool's the better fit for you. So let's start with Synthflow. So Synthflow is a no-code platform for building voice agents, and they've been making some pretty big changes recently. They've rolled out their Flow workflow editor, also massively overhauled their pricing, which we'll touch on at the end. But if we jump into their platform, I'll quickly show you kind of how easy it is to build voice agents on their platform. So until recently, building voice agents in Synthflow meant you had to add everything into a single prompt. Now you can build agents in their Flow Designer. Now this is in beta. I personally find it a little bit buggy, but you can see where this is going. And the benefits of doing it this way is not only is it more intuitive visually to see all the different routes, but there's also some latency benefits doing it this way. But as I say, this is still kind of in beta and it still has a few rough edges. But as you can see, like most visual voice agent platforms, you've got this nice kind of canvas over here, and you can add your nodes by just clicking here. You can enter your prompts in here, and we've got all the kind of expected nodes. You can do call transfers, you can add conditionals where we have these different routes, and you can also trigger tools. I think they're called actions in Synthflow. So like most tools, you need to build your actions separately, and then you can kind of connect them in here. Now, where Synthflow is quite different to other tools is that because it's primarily designed for no code, Synthflow has quite an impressive range of native integrations. So you've got Zapier and Mate.com, which effectively mean you can connect your Synthflow agent into literally thousands of other tools. Got a Go high level integration, Cal.com, which means you can connect it to Google Calendar. Then we got a couple of CRMs. So this is really nice because it means if you don't have a developer or you're not comfortable messing around with webhooks and MCP servers, you can still connect your voice agent into other systems that you might be using very quickly. And of course, if you do want to connect this into tools using code, you can. Like, it still has a decent API. You just have these options available if you are non-technical. So let's talk about telephony, and then we'll go on to voice realism. So inside Synthflow, you can buy phone numbers. So they're $1.50 a month. These can only be US, Canadian, or Australian numbers. So if, like myself, you're outside of those countries, you will probably need to import your phone numbers again. And you can do that the usual ways via something like Twilio or Telnix or via SipTrunk. One downside in Synthflow is that you can't test your agents directly in the platform without buying a phone number. So it has to actually call your phone, which is a bit annoying, but I think that's something that is going to change soon because, as you can see up here, when you click test, we've got this option down here called simulation and it says coming soon. So potentially by the time this video is out, that will not be the case. But as it stands right now, you either need to chat with your agent via text or have it actually call your phone number, which means it needs to have a phone number connected to it. So in terms of voice, we've got usual options available. The default voice engine is 11 Labs, as you'd expect, and you can either import your voice if you've created one on 11 Labs, or you can clone it directly from the platform by uploading some audio files. From some of the testing I've done with Synthflow, I'd say the voice configuration is not quite as natural to some of the other tools, but it's still pretty good. And you've obviously got a huge amount of control down here to tweak that and get it to a point where you're happy with it. So let's talk about concurrency. So by default, you get 5 concurrent phone lines, which is not a huge amount. For most businesses, that's going to be fine. But if you get busy periods or you're doing large outbound call campaigns, you're potentially going to need more than that. Now, latency is an area where I've got a few gripes with Synthflow. So from my testing, I was getting a huge range of latency. This was a standardized latency test. So I used the same prompts and the same models across a bunch of tools. And Synthflow had the slowest latency at around 1 second. More to the point though, the thing that particularly bothers me is that unless I'm being really silly, and let me know in the comments if I am, I couldn't find this number anywhere in the platform. I had to actually work out the latency by measuring the time between the different waveforms. Now, I would expect to see it in either the analytics section, which I can't see anywhere, or in the call logs, which again, I can't see anything here telling me the latency. So to me, this is just a bit of a red flag. So let's now move on to pricing. And this is a bit of a moving target because Synthflow has just made some huge changes to their pricing. Until about 2 months ago, Synthflow was one of the few tools where you could pay a fixed monthly plan. But like most voice agent tools, they've moved over to pay-as-you-go, which personally I much prefer because if you have lumpy call volume, it means you're not kind of underpaying and then overpaying. Also means there's an incentive to improve your agent's efficiency by using different models, etc. So generally speaking, Synthflow is not the most affordable. In fact, let me go to Voice AI Guide. This is going to be a little bit easier to compare. So Synthflow is this third column here. And you can see that for about 3,000 call minutes per month, we'd be looking at around about $423 a month, whereas alternatives, we can sort of shave off $30 or what's that, about $150 a month for this would be VAPI. And you can see the breakdown of where that falls here. Now, this is an estimate. This is not exact because we're essentially trying to convert tokens into minutes into dollars here, which is imprecise. And all of this is going to be affected by what models you use for text to speech, speech to text, the LLM models. If you want a more precise option, you can go to Synthflow's pricing page and enter in exactly what you would use. But generally speaking, it is not the most affordable option, but you're essentially paying a premium for the fact that it's no code. You've got those pre-built integrations, and it's essentially reducing the time that it's going to take you to build an agent and get it into production. So next up, let's have a look at Lindy. So Lindy AI is more a general AI automation platform for building AI agents that happens to have Lindy Phone, which is a voice agent tool within it. So it's not necessarily an apples and apples comparison here because Lindy is not just a platform for building voice agents. There's a lot more you can do with it. That said, a lot of people using Lindy are using it because it was one of the early platforms to allow you to build automation workflows that incorporated voice AI. So building voice agents in Lindy is really straightforward. I'll just show you a quick example. Go into this AI virtual assistant. And if you go into the flow editor, you can see you've got this nice kind of visual canvas where you can build out your agents. So each box is an AI agent, and you can give them access to Lindy Phone, which is a tool that allows it to make calls or receive calls. So if we click into here, we can see we've got the prompt set for the agent. And down here, we've given it this skill to make phone calls. So if we go into here, we can then configure this. So you got a few things you can customize. Of course, you can customize the model that it's using as well as the phone number that it's calling from. So you can buy phone numbers directly in the Lindy platform. You don't have as many options of importing them from things like Twilio, for example. And they're a little bit more expensive. I think phone numbers are about $10 per month on Lindy. And somewhat to be expected, we don't have as much in the way of things we can customize here. Like there's nothing around voicemail, interruption handling, or any of the fine tuning that you would expect to be able to play around with in a dedicated voice agent platform. So this is the compromise that we have with Lindy, is that because it's a general AI automation platform, we have a huge amount of other stuff that we can do. The amount of integrations we have is absolutely incredible. And if you're building voice agents as part of a wider automation workflow, it's a really good platform. The voice realism is pretty good. It's as good as any of the others. But really where Lindy is going to excel is on the integration front. So if I just go in here and I'll give you a sense of kind of how broad the range of integrations we have are. So Lindy, for example, you can fire up a computer, connect it into any of these tools. We've got scrapers that you can fire up. Absolutely incredible, the range of stuff that you can do on Lindy. So a few things worth being aware of with Lindy. Now, I love using Lindy for kind of general AI automation. It's an incredibly powerful platform. But the reason I typically don't use it for voice AI use cases is that it generally gets a bit cost prohibitive. So for $75 a month on the Pro plan, you can see we only get 30 phone calls a month, which is very expensive if that is your main use case. Even if we go up to $200 a month, we only get 100 phone calls per month. So if you're doing anything at scale, it's probably not going to make sense using Lindy compared to using a dedicated voice agent platform. But as I say, for general AI automation stuff, it's pretty phenomenal what you can do with it. Latency is not bad. Again, it's not the best I've seen. I've not done a standardized latency test on Lindy, but anecdotally from when I've used it, I would probably put the latency at around about 1 second. So there is a bit more of a lag compared to using something like a VAPI or a retail, where you can really fine tune the models and get the latency down, but it's not bad. It's very usable for just kind of little use cases where you need to incorporate voice AI as part of a larger workflow. So both of these are great options for building voice agents on, and given that you can try both of them out for free, I'd recommend doing that to see which one's going to be a better fit for your use case. Now, I'll drop links to both of them below, as well as the side-by-side comparison I put together. And if you'd like to watch me live build the same voice agent on both platforms, as well as 4 other voice AI tools, and then live test them with real phone calls, you can check that video out here.